Navy returns a fair amount of production on the defensive side of the ball, but they do lose second leading tackler Will Harbor to graduation, and they return Colin Ramos and Luke Paris, among others. How did that linebacking group look in the spring?
Well, Harbor, obviously, the way that Navy's defense is set up, and it's been this way for many years, the inside linebackers are going to make the bulk of tackles. That's just the way it's designed. Ramos actually had a better year than Harbor. Ramos was Navy's most valuable player as selected by the team, the coaches. He also won the Silver Helmet Award, which is presented by the Touchdown Club of Annapolis, a local organization, to Navy's most outstanding player. So Ramos, he was first team All-American Athletic Conference. So Ramos had the best season of any player on the entire team, much less defender. And so obviously having Ramos come back is huge. They have to replace Will Harbor. There was a player that emerged during the spring, which he had not played at all last season, and his name is Job Grant. And it looks as though he and Kyle Jacob he was not available during spring camp because of off-season surgery. Those two will go into August training camp battling for Harbor's job. And then the bigger is Navy lost both. It's outside linebacker. So Navy has two outside linebackers. One they call the striker. The other they call the raider. The striker is like a glorified safety, and that's exactly the type of player they want there. Almost every player at the position was recruited as a safety, and that player has to, is either in pass coverage or is rushing the quarterback in blitz situations. So you want a more athletic, more versatile guy there. And then the raider position is like a defensive end. So Navy's got a 3-4 alignment. And if you want to put another guy and turn it into a 4-man front, the raider is that guy. So he's got to be a little bit bigger, bulkier, able to stand up to and provide run support defense. Now they had two guys last year. Jordan Sanders was a starter at the beginning of the year and was performing well, but he got injured. And this guy, Luke Pierce, who came out of nowhere and had, again, a guy that had not played as a plebe. He'd been on junior varsity, so no one had ever seen him. Well, he replaced Sanders and was phenomenal. He became a real playmaker. He was probably one of the most surprising performers of last season. So they've got two really solid players, in my opinion, at the Raider linebacker spot. But at the striker position, this guy, Jackson Campbell, needs to step up. Going into last season, I think they thought Campbell would be a guy that would be an impact player, and he just was not ready. He did not make the adjustment from safety to outside linebacker and did not wind up playing very much on the defensive side of the ball. He strictly played special teams. Well, now they graduated two guys. Their top two strikers, Xavier McDonald and Avon Gibbons, graduated. So Campbell's got to step up. To me, that's a major question mark position for the Navy defense.
Speaking of Xavier McDonald, he was one of the leaders on that team, but they do return some others in the defensive backfield. Raywan Lane the third, Andrew Duhart, Deshaun Peel, and others. How did the defensive backs look in the spring?
Well, Ray Lane's the leader back there. He's a playmaker. He's a ball hawk. He's the type of guy that just seems to find the ball. A lot of pass breakups, interceptions. He was outstanding last year. Played at an all-conference level, and he'll just be better as a senior. So you got a real player in Ray Lane, and he's kind of what you would call the free safety. They move him around. I think this year you may see them move him up into more of a close to the line of scrimmage so that he can blitz the quarterback because he's such a playmaker. He's a guy that can make plays. But the guy that Deshaun Peel was probably the most solid cornerback last year. I wouldn't say the cornerbacks were great last season, but of the cornerbacks, he was the most solid and consistent. So he's a real leader. Duhart was kind of thrown into the fire. He was not expected to be the starter, but the starter who initially was Elias Larry, who's now has transferred to Colorado State. He did not perform well early, and Duhart replaced him in the lineup, and it was kind of on-the-job training. But I expected Duhart to be vastly improved going into this season, and then they had to find another safety. And as of right now, it looks coming out of spring camp, it looked like the other safety, which they call the Bandit, is going to be Mbidi Williams, and he's a converted corner. So they moved him to safety last season, and he ended up, taking over as the starter. But he also was adjusting to a new position. So I think they're very, very solid in the defensive backfield as far as starters, but the backups behind them are all inexperienced. In most cases, none of them have even played. So again, big issue for the secondary is developing depth.
Bill, if you had to pick a defensive player to have a breakout type season here in 2024, who would that be?
I would say Landon Robinson, the nose guard. And that was probably Navy's biggest loss was Donald Berniard Jr. He was the starting nose guard basically since the middle of his freshman season and was simply outstanding. Undersized guy, but played with great leverage and explosion. And he was an unsung guy that just did his job and did it well for 4 years, often overlooked because he's not flashy and doesn't make a lot of plays. I mean, in a lot of cases, the nose guard's job is to take on double teams and hold the point of attack. So he might not be getting into the backfield and making tackles for loss or, making sacks on pass downs. But Berniard was outstanding and, in my opinion, was an all-conference level player, even though he didn't get the recognition he deserved. So this is a huge void. And Landon Robinson is a remarkable player. He was recruited as a linebacker, and they moved him to defensive line. So he, I think, has gone from 225 pounds when he was recruited to 290 pounds, but he has maintained his athleticism. He runs one of the fastest 40-yard dash times on the team. He consistently clocks 20 miles per hour plus on the GPS. He is just a freak athlete, and he holds all the weight room records. He's throwing up weight in the weight room like you wouldn't believe. They just had a video clip recently of him breaking the record in the squat. So he is a freak athlete. And to show you what a freak athlete is, he was one of only two nose guards in the entire country who played on the kickoff coverage unit last year. So a 290-pound nose guard running down the field on kickoff coverage. So I think Landon Robinson could be your breakout defensive player.
Sounds like he's got some fast feet. I got to know, what's that squat record?
I think it was something close to 400 pounds.
So what would you say the main strength for this football team is this year?
Defense. The defense has been good ever since Brian Newberry was named defensive coordinator. He brought in a very aggressive system. He's an attacking type defensive coordinator. And when he was promoted to head coach, he handed the reins off to his top lieutenant, P.J. Volker. P.J. was with Brian at Kennesaw State, came here to Navy with Brian. They are completely on the same page. They know exactly what they want to do defensively. And the defense has been good since 2019 when Brian Newberry arrived. They were good again last year. They return a significant number of players, and they have solid replacements for those players that graduated. So defense is the strength of the team.